The little girl secretly raised a stray puppy at home, but when her parents discovered the truth, they were left speechless. In the quaint town of Milbrook, Massachusetts, where ancient maple trees line streets named after the founding fathers, life moved at a gentle pace that seemed unchanged by the modern world beyond its borders. Here, in a beautiful colonial house with faded blue shutters and a wraparound porch, lived the Mitchell family. James Mitchell, a respected high school history teacher, his wife Linda, who ran the local library, and their 10-year-old daughter Sarah, who was about to change their lives in ways none of them could have imagined. Sarah Mitchell had always been different from her peers at Franklin Elementary School. While other girls her age obsessed over the latest social media trends and playground politics, Sarah preferred to spend her time reading about animals in the library where her mother worked. Her bedroom walls were covered not with pop star posters, but with carefully drawn pictures of dogs, cats, and wildlife. This passion for animals was something her parents had always encouraged from a distance. You see, the Mitchells had one strict rule that had been in place since before Sarah was born: no pets. The rule existed primarily because of James's severe allergies. Since childhood, he had struggled with asthma and allergic reactions to animal dander, leading to numerous emergency room visits throughout his life. Linda supported this rule not only for her husband's health, but also because their busy schedules left little room for proper pet care. Sarah had learned to accept this reality, though it didn't stop her from dreaming. Every day after school, Sarah took what her parents assumed was a scenic route home, wandering through the quiet alleyways behind Main Street's historic storefronts. She had discovered that these less-traveled paths often led to encounters with local cats and the occasional squirrel, giving her the animal interactions she craved. Her parents attributed these meandering walks to their daughter's contemplative nature, praising her for being an old soul who appreciated the simple pleasures of life. The truth was far more purposeful. Sarah had mapped out every possible location where strays might gather, keeping a small bag of pet treats in her backpack just in case. She knew which restaurants put out leftover food and which shopkeepers left water bowls in their back alleys. In her heart, she felt that helping these animals, even in small ways, was her calling. Everything changed on an unusually bitter October afternoon, when the Massachusetts fall was showing its harsh side. The wind whipped through the streets with an angry howl, sending dried leaves skittering across the pavement like nature's tumbleweeds. Sarah had just left school, her backpack heavy with sixth-grade assignments and her mind preoccupied with an upcoming history test about the American Revolution, a subject that, despite her father's passionate teaching at the high school, failed to capture her interest as much as the animal documentaries she loved to watch. As she made her way through the alley behind Joe's Bakery, where the comforting aroma of freshly baked sourdough usually wafted through the air, a different sound cut through the wind's morning song. At first, it was so faint she thought she might have imagined it. A weak whimper, barely audible, coming from behind a stack of rain-soaked cardboard boxes. Sarah approached cautiously, her heart thundering in her chest. The sound came again, slightly stronger this time, accompanied by a subtle movement among the boxes. Pushing aside her fear, she carefully moved closer, her mittened hands trembling as she reached for the topmost box. What she found behind those boxes would change the course of not only her life but her entire family's future. There, huddled in a tight ball of matted white fur, was a puppy. It couldn't have been more than a few months old, its small body shivering violently against the cold. What broke Sarah's heart most were its eyes, large, brown, and filled with a sadness that seemed too profound for such a young creature. The puppy's white fur was so dirty it appeared gray in places, and Sarah could see its ribs clearly through its thin coat. One front paw was held at an awkward angle, suggesting an injury. As Sarah knelt beside the trembling animal, she noticed something else that made her throat tight with emotion. Around its neck was a frayed piece of rope, evidence that this wasn't just a stray but an abandoned pet. "Oh, you poor thing," Sarah whispered, slowly removing her pink wool mittens. The puppy flinched at her voice but didn't try to run, perhaps too weak or too cold to move. With gentle movements she'd learned from years of watching animal rescue videos, Sarah extended her hand, allowing the puppy to catch her scent. After what seemed like an eternity, the puppy stretched its neck forward slightly, its cold nose touching Sarah's fingers. That small gesture of trust was all it took. Sarah knew in that moment that she couldn't leave this creature to face another night alone in the cold. But the reality of her situation crashed down around her like a wave of icy water. Her father's allergies weren't just an inconvenience. They were serious enough that he carried an inhaler everywhere he went. Her mother's stance on pets was equally firm, rooted in practical concerns about their busy schedules and the responsibilities of pet ownership. Sarah could almost hear her mother's voice. "We barely have time to manage our current commitments. A pet would be unfair to everyone involved." As these thoughts warred in her mind, the puppy let out another whimper, this one somehow more plaintive than before. Sarah looked into those soulful brown eyes and made a decision that would set in motion a chain of events she couldn't possibly predict. Shrugging off her heavy winter coat, Sarah carefully wrapped it around the shivering puppy. "It's okay," she whispered, her voice trembling with both fear and determination. "I'm going to help you. Somehow I'm going to make this work." The basement bedroom that had been Sarah's domain since her 9th birthday suddenly became her greatest blessing. Her parents had converted the space the previous year, adding a separate entrance from the backyard to give their growing daughter some independence. At the time, Sarah had been thrilled with the privacy. Now, it became the perfect secret sanctuary for an unauthorized guest. Getting the puppy home required all the stealth Sarah could muster. She took the longest route possible, avoiding the busy main streets and ducking behind trees whenever a car passed. The puppy, perhaps sensing her nervous energy, remained perfectly still in her arms, buried deep within the folds of her coat. Once inside her room, Sarah created a makeshift bed in the corner of her walk-in closet using old blankets and cushions. The puppy, exhausted from its ordeal, curled up immediately on the soft surface. Sarah's mind raced with all the things she needed to consider: food, water, cleaning supplies, and most importantly, how to keep this enormous secret from her parents. "I think I'll call you Charlie," she whispered to the sleeping puppy, having noticed earlier that it was a male. "It seems to fit you somehow." Charlie's ear twitched slightly at the sound of his new name, and Sarah took it as a sign of approval. That night began Sarah's double life as a secret pet owner. She lay awake for hours, researching dog care on her phone under her covers, making lists of supplies she would need, and trying to figure out how to manage this massive responsibility without alerting her parents. The next morning, Sarah woke up early, heart pounding as she remembered her new secret. Charlie was exactly where she'd left him, but now his eyes were open and alert, watching her with cautious curiosity. His tail wagged slightly when she approached, a small gesture that filled her heart with both joy and determination. Using her accumulated allowance and lunch money, Sarah stopped at the pet store on her way to school, purchasing the basics: puppy food, a small collar, and some basic supplies. She told the cashier she was buying them for her aunt's new puppy, the lie tasting bitter in her mouth. Throughout the school day, she could barely focus on her lessons, her mind constantly wandering to Charlie, alone in her room. The weeks that followed were a careful dance of deception and dedication. Sarah developed a routine that would have impressed military strategists. She woke up an hour earlier each morning to feed and clean up after Charlie, taking him for quick walks in the backyard when her parents were still asleep. She saved portions of her dinner to supplement his dog food, carefully disposing of empty pet food bags in public trash cans far from home. Charlie proved to be an exceptionally intelligent puppy. Whether through some sixth sense or simply good training, he seemed to understand the need for absolute quiet when anyone else was home. Sarah spent hours teaching him basic commands using hand signals instead of voice commands, knowing that barking would be their undoing. As his injured paw healed and his coat regained its proper white color, Sarah discovered that Charlie was likely a West Highland White Terrier mix. His personality began to emerge, playful and affectionate when they were alone, but capable of remarkable self-control when stealth was needed. He would lie perfectly still in the closet when Sarah's mother came down to do laundry, not making a sound even when the vacuum cleaner roared to life just feet away. But keeping such a big secret took its toll. Sarah's grades began to slip, not dramatically, but enough for her teachers to notice. How could she concentrate on algebra when she was constantly worried about Charlie being discovered? She started making excuses to avoid family outings, afraid to leave him alone for too long. Her mother noticed these changes but attributed them to typical preteen behavior. What neither of her parents could ignore, however, were the positive changes. Sarah became incredibly organized, keeping her room spotlessly clean to hide any evidence of Charlie. She started doing her own laundry without being asked, carefully managing any clothes that might carry dog fur. She developed a strict schedule for homework, completing it efficiently to have more time with Charlie. The secret might have continued indefinitely if not for a series of events that began on a rainy Saturday in February. For months after Charlie had come into their lives, Sarah's parents had planned a weekend trip to visit her aunt in New Hampshire, but Sarah had begged off, claiming she needed to study for an upcoming science test. This wasn't entirely untrue. She did have a test, but her main concern was leaving Charlie alone. Her parents agreed to let her stay home under the supervision of their elderly neighbor, Mrs. Thompson, who would check in periodically. This arrangement seemed perfect to Sarah. Mrs. Thompson's eyesight wasn't the best, and she never came down to the basement room. The freedom of having the house to herself was intoxicating. For the first time in months, Sarah could let Charlie out of her room to play properly. They spent the morning playing fetch in the basement family room, Charlie's excitement at having more space to run almost palpable. The weather had been growing increasingly severe throughout the day, but Sarah barely noticed, lost in the joy of finally being able to play openly with Charlie. She didn't hear the weather alert on her phone, warning of dangerous road conditions. She didn't know that her parents had decided to cut their trip short, concerned about the worsening storm. It was during an enthusiastic game of fetch with Charlie's favorite sock ball that Sarah heard the front door open. The sound of her mother's voice calling out froze her in place. "Sarah? Why are there muddy paw prints on the kitchen floor?" Time seemed to stop. Sarah stood in the middle of the family room, Charlie at her feet, both of them staring at the basement stairs as footsteps approached. Her parents appeared around the corner, their expressions shifting from confusion to shock as they took in the scene before them. "Sarah Elizabeth Mitchell," her father began, his face reddening, though whether from anger or his allergies, Sarah couldn't tell. "What is the meaning of this?" The story came pouring out of Sarah in a rush of tears and trembling words. She told them about finding Charlie in the alley, about his injured paw and desperate condition. She explained how she'd cared for him, taught him to be quiet, and used her own money to buy his food. Through it all, Charlie sat obediently at her feet, as if understanding the gravity of the moment. "I couldn't leave him to die," Sarah finished, her voice barely a whisper. "He needed me." Her parents exchanged long looks, having one of those silent conversations that only couples married for decades can have. Finally, her mother spoke, her voice gentle but firm. "Sarah, you know your father's allergies make it impossible to keep a dog. But Mom, Dad hasn't had any reactions," Sarah protested, her voice cracking with emotion. "I've been so careful to keep Charlie clean and confined to my room. I vacuum twice a day and wash my clothes separately. Please don't make me give him up." Her father, who had been unusually quiet, stepped forward and knelt to look at Charlie more closely. The little dog wagged his tail hopefully, and to everyone's surprise, James reached out to pet him. "You've been taking care of him for months, you said?" Sarah nodded anxiously. "And I haven't had any allergy attacks," he mused, looking thoughtful. "In fact, I've been breathing better lately. Linda, remember how Dr. Peterson said exposure therapy sometimes helps with pet allergies?" Linda's expression softened as she watched her husband interact with Charlie. "I've noticed you haven't needed your inhaler as much lately," she admitted. "Mom, Dad?" Sarah began carefully, hope rising in her chest. "I know I should have told you about Charlie from the beginning, but I've learned so much from taking care of him. Did you know I haven't missed a single homework assignment since I got him? I have to be organized now because he needs his walks and feeding times to be consistent." Her parents exchanged another look, this one tinged with something new, pride, perhaps, or recognition of their daughter's growth. "What you did was wrong," her father said firmly. Keeping secrets this big from us is not acceptable. Sarah's heart sank, but then he continued, however, the responsibility you've shown in caring for Charlie is remarkable. Your mother and I need to have a serious discussion about this. They sent Sarah to her room with Charlie while they talked. She sat on her bed, hugging her furry friend close, preparing herself for the worst. After what felt like hours but was probably only 30 minutes, her parents called her back upstairs. They sat her down at the kitchen table, their expressions serious. We've reached a decision, her mother began. What you did was wrong, and there need to be consequences for keeping such a big secret. Sarah nodded, fighting back tears. However, her father continued, we're willing to give this a trial period, 1 month. If my allergies stay manageable, and if you continue to show the same level of responsibility you've been displaying, Charlie can stay. Sarah's eyes widened in disbelief. Really? You mean it? With conditions, her mother added quickly. You'll need to take on extra chores to prove you can handle the responsibility. Charlie needs to be properly registered and vaccinated. And you'll need to attend dog training classes with him. We'll help pay for those, but it's important to do this right. The transformation of the Mitchell household over the next few weeks was remarkable. The basement was professionally cleaned and equipped with air purifiers to help with James's allergies. Charlie attended training classes where he proved to be incredibly intelligent, mastering commands quickly. Sarah's responsibility extended beyond just caring for Charlie. She helped her mother deep clean the house weekly and assisted her father with organizing his home office, proving she could handle multiple obligations. But perhaps the most remarkable change was in the family dynamic itself. Movie nights now included Charlie curled up on his own bed nearby. Weekend walks became a family affair, with all 4 of them exploring local trails together. Even Sarah's father found himself bonding with Charlie, sneaking him treats when he thought no one was looking. As months turned into years, Charlie became more than just a pet. He became the heart of the Mitchell family. His presence had taught them all valuable lessons about compassion, responsibility, and the unexpected ways love can transform us. Sarah's initial act of kindness set off a chain reaction that reached far beyond their household. Inspired by Charlie's story, she began volunteering at the local animal shelter, helping other abandoned animals find loving homes. Her parents, seeing their daughter's dedication, became advocates for pet adoption in their community. The little girl who had once smuggled a puppy into her basement grew into a compassionate young woman who eventually pursued a career in veterinary medicine. Charlie was there through it all: her high school graduation, her acceptance to veterinary school, and every milestone in between. Looking back years later, the Mitchells often reflected on that rainy February day when their lives changed forever. What had left them speechless then had given them countless reasons to smile, laugh, and love more deeply than they ever thought possible. Charlie lived out his days as the happiest and most loved dog in Milbrook, never knowing that his journey from a shivering puppy in an alley to beloved family member had changed not just his life, but the lives of everyone around him. His story became a testament to the transformative power of compassion and the endless capacity of the human heart to grow when touched by pure, innocent love. As for Sarah, she never again took the short way home from anywhere, knowing that sometimes the longest routes lead us exactly where we need to be. She had learned that the biggest acts of love often require the greatest courage, and that sometimes what seems impossible at first glance becomes the very thing we need most in our lives. The story of Charlie and the Mitchells didn't end there. As Sarah progressed through high school, their home became known as a sanctuary for animals in need. While they couldn't take in every stray that crossed their path, the Mitchells became instrumental in connecting abandoned pets with loving homes throughout Milbrook. It started small, with Sarah creating a bulletin board at her father's high school to post about animals needing homes. James, who had once been adamantly against pets, found himself becoming an advocate for responsible pet ownership, often incorporating lessons about animal welfare and empathy into his history classes. His students were particularly moved by the story of Charlie and how one small act of kindness had transformed not just a puppy's life, but an entire family's perspective. Linda, inspired by her daughter's passion, created a special section in the library dedicated to animal care and welfare. She organized reading programs where children could practice reading aloud to therapy dogs, with Charlie serving as the program's first canine listener. His gentle nature and patient demeanor made him perfect for helping nervous young readers gain confidence. The basement room where Charlie had once been a secret became a temporary way station for animals in transition. With proper precautions for James's allergies, including a sophisticated air filtration system and strict cleaning protocols, the Mitchells were able to provide emergency overnight shelter for animals being transported to permanent homes or no-kill shelters in neighboring cities. Sarah's high school years were marked by outstanding achievement, but not in the conventional sense. While she maintained good grades, her true accomplishments were measured in the lives she touched. She started a pet education program at local elementary schools, teaching young children about responsible pet ownership and animal safety. Charlie, now a certified therapy dog, accompanied her on these visits, his story serving as a powerful testament to the difference one person's compassion could make. The summer before Sarah's senior year, something extraordinary happened. A local news station picked up the story of Charlie and the Mitchells after their pet education program received a community service award. The feature story, titled "The Secret Puppy That Changed a Town," resonated with viewers across Massachusetts. Soon, other communities began reaching out, asking for advice on starting similar programs. James Mitchell found himself becoming an unexpected advocate for pet-friendly workplaces and schools. His own experience with Charlie had shown him that with proper precautions and planning, even those with allergies could safely interact with animals. He worked with the school board to implement a therapy dog program during exam periods, helping students manage stress and anxiety. Linda's library program expanded to include a monthly pause for reading event that drew families from neighboring towns. She authored a children's book about Charlie's story, with all proceeds going to local animal shelters. The book, illustrated by one of James's talented art students, became a favorite among young readers and was eventually picked up by a regional publisher. As Sarah prepared for college, she reflected on how one decision made on a cold October afternoon had shaped not only her future, but had rippled out to touch countless other lives. Her college application essay about Charlie earned her a substantial scholarship to her dream veterinary program, where she planned to specialize in rehabilitation for abandoned and abused animals. Charlie, now showing signs of age with gray around his muzzle, remained the beloved center of the Mitchell household. He had developed an uncanny ability to sense when any family member was troubled or upset, offering his quiet comfort just when it was needed most. When Sarah's grandmother passed away during her junior year, it was Charlie who spent hours by her side, his head resting gently on her lap as she sorted through old photographs and memories. The morning Sarah left for college was emotional for everyone. Charlie seemed to understand the significance of the packed bags and tearful hugs. As Sarah knelt to say goodbye to him, he pressed his forehead against hers in their special way, a gesture that had become their private sign of affection over the years. "I'll be home for breaks," she whispered to him, fighting back tears. "You take care of Mom and Dad for me, okay?" During Sarah's first semester at college, her parents sent regular updates about Charlie's adventures. He had taken to sleeping in the hallway between their bedroom and Sarah's empty room, as if keeping watch over both spaces. James would sometimes find Linda sitting on Sarah's bed with Charlie, both of them clearly missing their girl. But Charlie's greatest gift to the family was yet to come. During Sarah's sophomore year of college, the Mitchells received a call about a local family facing eviction who needed emergency housing for their elderly golden retriever. Despite their initial hesitation about bringing another dog into their home, they agreed to help temporarily. Charlie, defying his usual territorial nature, immediately welcomed the old dog, sharing his bed and toys without hesitation. Watching their interaction, the Mitchells realized that Charlie had taught them more than just how to love one dog. He had taught them how to open their hearts continuously to those in need. This realization led to the establishment of the Charlie Mitchell Memorial Fund during Sarah's final year of veterinary school. The fund, supported by community donations and proceeds from Linda's now successful children's book series, helped families experiencing temporary hardship keep their pets by providing assistance with veterinary bills and pet supplies. When Charlie finally passed away, peacefully in his sleep at the age of 15, the entire town of Milbrook mourned with the Mitchells. The local newspaper's obituary section, which had never before featured a pet, ran a half-page tribute to the dog who changed our town. Students from James's school created a memorial garden in the high school courtyard, complete with a small bronze statue of a West Highland White Terrier greeting visitors with perpetually wagging tail. Sarah, by then a practicing veterinarian, established a low-cost veterinary clinic in Milbrook, naming it Charlie's Place. The clinic's mission statement, displayed prominently in the waiting room, read, "Every act of kindness, no matter how small, has the power to transform lives." Below these words hung a photograph of a small white puppy, dirty and scared, huddled behind some cardboard boxes. Alongside it, a picture of the same dog years later, gray-muzzled but happy, surrounded by his loving family. The Mitchell family's journey with Charlie became more than just a heartwarming story about a girl and her secret puppy. It became a testament to the ripple effect of compassion, showing how one small decision made with love could transform not just a family, but an entire community. Their story inspired other families to open their homes and hearts to animals in need, creating a network of support that extended far beyond the boundaries of their small Massachusetts town. Years later, when asked about that fateful October day, Sarah would smile and say, "I thought I was saving Charlie, but the truth is, he saved all of us. He taught us that sometimes the biggest changes in our lives come disguised as challenges we think we can't handle." The Mitchell story continues to inspire new generations, reminding people that love, even when it arrives in unexpected packages, has the power to transform lives in ways we could never imagine. And somewhere, in a small town in Massachusetts, a bronze puppy still wags its tail in greeting, standing as a permanent reminder that sometimes the best family members are the ones we never planned to have. Charlie's legacy lives on not just in the lives he touched directly, but in the countless acts of kindness he inspired. The little girl who once secretly raised a stray puppy grew into a woman who helped change countless lives, all because she stopped to help a shivering puppy on a cold autumn day. And in homes across Milbrook and beyond, families continue to open their hearts to animals in need, proving that sometimes the most powerful changes begin with the smallest acts of compassion. As for the Mitchell family, they never again took the conventional path when faced with a challenge. They learned from Charlie that the best decisions aren't always the easiest ones, and that sometimes being left speechless is just the beginning of an extraordinary journey. In the end, Charlie's story became more than just a tale about a secret puppy. It became a testament to the transformative power of love, the strength of family bonds, and the endless capacity of the human heart to grow and adapt when touched by pure, innocent love. And in Milbrook, Massachusetts, where ancient maple trees still line streets named after founding fathers, people still tell the story of how one little girl's act of kindness changed not just her family, but an entire community, reminding us all that the greatest adventures often begin with a single act of compassion.